in Santa Clara County, those teachers that want to work, you know, those 10 and 11-hour days, to see that every student succeeds, no student fails. If we do that, we could change the quality of life in this county. But we don't have that at the present time. So every time that a charter is opened and takes those kinds of people, those kinds of teachers who want to make such a difference away from the district schools, I think that's my comment and why I think it bleeds from the school system. I do agree with dependent charters. You know, Cambrian has dependent charters. Campbell Elementary has dependent charters. San Jose Unified just opened up Baccarat School as a dependent charter. So I think there's dependent charters that we could, that I could subscribe to and work with. And those that come to the county level for the appellate review that are beacons of light, that may be a different way to proceed, like project-based. I tried to do project-based as a principal in a regular public middle school. Is impossible, nearly impossible to try to do. But if we could see how it could work in a charter school, then maybe all students benefit in the public school system. So that was my comment and what I truly believe about charters.
Gary?
Yeah.
You have some philosophical differences in that perspective of charters and what the county's done. Go ahead, Tom.
Well, listen, I think it's important to know where I got started with charters. It goes back, actually with Carol, back to 1998, 99, when we received a petition from Downtown College Prep. And I'm proud that we were the board that approved the first charter school in this county that has led to very successful effort to help those who would be first graduates to move on into colleges from their family. So that's been my experience. And my experience there as well, I think it's important to note, is that the superintendent, along with the board, embraced the petitioners. Listen, they had some good ideas, maybe not fully flushed out, needed to be worked on, but the essence there is that there's energy in the community to want to make a change and some differences. And quite frankly, and I understand it from a local district perspective, sometimes local districts can be pretty rigid about how they have to handle things. There's only so many options they can offer. So this is the opportunity to sort of harness that energy, bring the community together, and really take it a new direction. If you want to think about it, it's the entrepreneurial activity that we're known so well for in this community, you know, in business, in terms of technology and so forth. It's harnessing that same entrepreneurial spirit. Listen, we don't want to put kids at risk. So from the time that we charter a school, in other words, approve the petition, we realize as a county board that we also have an oversight responsibility. We need to make sure that they deliver on the things that they said they were going to do. And that's really the basis, John, for the memorandum of understanding in clarifying some of the details about the charter, is to be able to hold them accountable for some of those things. Many of these schools tend to be labs almost, in that they are trying new and different things in terms of instructional approach. Joe alluded to that, perhaps project-based, which is the theme really at South Bay Prep. Or in the case of Rocket Ship, it's a school that focuses on acquiring English more quickly for that community and literacy. But in the end, I think it's about harnessing that energy from the community and creating some choices, as I alluded to earlier as well. There's an opportunity to create some really good choices for students who may not be served through normal districts at this time.
Carol, concerns about charter schools?
Well, I think my main concern as a public high school teacher, retired in special education, charters, for the most part, do not accept special education students. They will accept ones with mild learning disabilities, which is fine, because those children could probably be decertified anyway. But, you know, the autistic child, the severely orthopedically impaired, and it's quite simply they're not set up, you know, they don't have the teachers, they don't have the ADA access, and a whole variety of reasons. So that kind of concerns me, that in a sense they can select the more motivated, albeit, say it's a poor student. Just because a student is poor doesn't mean that the parent doesn't want them to have a better education and that the child is going to be able to perform adequately. I think the question that needs to be asked about charter schools is what effect does it have on public education? I mean, we sit there and talk about the pros and cons of rocket ship, DCP, and that's fine, because they're all excellent charters. But we sort of need to, I think, get some statistics to say what effect overall is it having on public education, because so often you'll hear some of these businessmen and these economists say, well, if we have more charters and vouchers, then, you know, the public schools they're going to have to become more competitive. Well, in competition, you have winners and losers, and so you need to figure out what is going to happen to the losers. And is public education going to be left only with special education students, English language learners, and students whose parents are not fully engaged in their education for whatever reason? Now, having said that, I was on the board with Gary when we approved DCP, Downtown College Prep, and it's been an excellent charter. And what I liked about it is from the very beginning we worked collaboratively with them. It wasn't that we're saying, well, gee, we don't want you in our neighborhood. It's just that we really worked with them. And Jennifer Andaluz was excellent. Greg Lippman was very good. And I always liked it whenever Jennifer came to give a report to the board, she was very open about what was going on. She wasn't trying to sanitize data or put a happy face on it. And when you looked at their first graduating class, I think roughly 50%, the ones that, say, started in 9th grade, there was roughly 50% that got to the 12th grade, which, you know, I have no problem with that, because they did take some of the lowest scoring and neediest children. So I think, you know, now if the public schools had a 50% drop rate, we'd be just absolutely crucified. But I mean, you have to look at it in context, that they were dealing with some very, very needy children. Now, the other question, when a child in the charter school is not doing well, they just say, sorry, we don't, you know, you need to leave, we're not dealing with you anymore. So where do they go? They go back to the public school. So fine, we have to take the child and we have to work with them, and we do. So I think there needs to be a balance there. Now, in terms of the county's role, you know, I'm sure that each charter that comes before them, they review it on their individual merits. And since they are the last kind of court of appeals and they approve X amount, then that's fine. My main concern would be, are we going to have sufficient oversight? Because if each year additional charters come, and pretty soon you're up, I don't know, how many up to now, Gary?
The county has 9.
9, okay, 9. Okay, if 9 becomes, you know, 15 and 15 becomes 20, I would really be concerned about the oversight, because, and I don't mean micromanaging, just sufficient oversight. Do they need help with their budget? Do they know how to deal with expulsions? Because what happens, they decide, very rare cases, they have to expel a student, and they don't have an expulsion process set up, so they just kick the kid back to the public school, and we say, you've got to do an expulsion process, and we help them with it.
Thank you very much.
I get
There you go.
3 more minutes.
So Carol, talking about the current composition of the board, what is your view of the board currently, and what do you see as your role as a new member of the board? How would you fit in, or how would you bring change to the board?
Well, looking at the current composition, they seem to have quite a variety of experienced people from various backgrounds. I know several of them, and as I said, my hope, if I were elected, is that to work very collaboratively with them to continue what they're already doing, certainly to sit down with Superintendent Weiss and to sort of be brought up to you know, what's going on, particularly with this, as I said, the difficult economic times that I think everybody's facing. So I like the idea that they have such diversity and that it's over the entire Santa Clara County, which, you know, in itself is quite a very broad scope. But I think, you know, this way they bring individual, you know, experiences of what's happening in their district, because I'm very familiar with San Jose Unified, and I know what's going on there, and I still get involved. And so then, like, Joe's down in Gilroy. Well, Gilroy's a whole new subset of you know, things that you have to be well aware of. There's Palo Alto, and there's in between there's East Side. So I mean, you have such a variety that, you know, each trustee member hopefully has got a pretty solid idea of what's going on in the district, and you can share what's going on.